Before I dive into this, I just want to say that Christian Bale is without a doubt one of the most talented actors of his generation, but I recently saw something written about him that I just haven't been able to get out of my head. I was happily scrolling away on my phone, as you do, when I came across a CBR article titled 10 Best Studio Ghibli Dubs Ranked. Now, props to the writer for including the Studio Canal version of Arrietty in the top 5, though I have to say that I was very surprised to see Howl's Moving Castle in the number 1 spot. It's not that the Disney dub is bad. In fact, Billy Crystal's performance as Calcifer is absolutely perfect in my opinion. When I saw this CBR article saying that Disney's Howl's Moving Castle dub is carried by one performance, I automatically assumed that the writer meant Billy Crystal, but they were actually talking about Christian Bale. They wrote, "This dub is made by Christian Bale's performance as Howl. He perfectly captures the character's charisma and radiating insecurities, adding plenty of emotion to the movie." Again, Christian Bale, a very talented guy. However, I don't think I'm watching the same dub as this writer. I remember not being a huge fan of Bale's version of Howl when I first saw the English version of Howl's Moving Castle, so after reading this article, I decided to re-watch the Disney dub to see if maybe I had judged it too harshly. If anything, I liked Bale's performance even less this time around. Of course, the way Bale throws himself into his roles is well documented, taking the whole method acting thing to whole new levels. He lost 63 pounds in just 4 months using a diet of apples, coffee and cigarettes to play the lead role in 2004's The Machinist, which was a truly impressive feat when you consider what he looked like in American Psycho. He then had to get back into shape to star in Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, which he somehow managed. In fact, he packed on a little too much muscle and almost didn't fit into the Batsuit. Batman Begins is still regarded as one of the best superhero movies ever made, but its proximity to Howl's Moving Castle didn't help the Ghibli film in my opinion. The English dub of Howl's Moving Castle was released nationwide in the United States on the 17th of June 2005, just 2 days after Batman Begins dropped in cinemas. This may or may not have been Disney trying to piggyback on all the Batman hype, but if it was a misguided idea because it only served to solidify the link between Howl and Batman. Bale apparently worked on both projects at the same time. In this behind the scenes footage, he's wearing a t-shirt that reads Casey Fighting Method, which is the combat style he uses in Nolan's films. Like a lot of other people, I saw Batman Begins before the dubbed version of Howl's Moving Castle, so when Howl opened his mouth, all I could hear was, "I'm Batman." Looking back at it now, the whole thing just looks like Bruce Wayne dropped some acid and we're just along for the ride. For me, Bale's take on Howl is just way too growly and too broody for the character. Even in Howl's most woe is me moments, he's supposed to be more of a stroppy teen than a tortured hero, like when he throws a full-on tantrum after Sophie accidentally messes up his hair. Not only does he sound too much like Batman, a lot of Bale's lines sound stilted and just not quite right to me.
My uncle, who was a wizard, gave me this place as my private study. And now you can come here whenever you like.
Though, to be fair, dubbing an anime in a new language isn't easy. With English being so different from Japanese, it's sometimes very hard to come up with dialogue that matches the timing and the structure of a sentence. Cindy and Don Hewitt, who wrote the English language version of the script, actually tweaked it as they went along, doing their best to make the dialogue sound as natural as possible. They did a pretty decent job for the most part, but Bale clearly struggled with certain scenes.
Don't worry, remember the ring I gave you? It will guide you back home. All you have to do is summon Calcifer with your heart. That is pretty fast.
And I'm wondering if it would be better just to do, "Don't worry, the ring I gave you."
Instead of "remember the ring"?
Yeah.
Let's try one more.
Of course, the majority of actors would find this quite challenging, so I'm not blaming Bale exactly. I just think that he was the wrong choice for Howl. Takuya Kimura, who plays Howl in the original Japanese version, has a voice that is far more suitable for the character, striking the perfect balance between complicated young man and charismatic hero. So why was Bale even cast in the English version of the film in the first place? Well, he pretty much got down on his knees and begged for a part. It turns out that Bale is actually a big Studio Ghibli fan. He apparently fell in love with Spirited Away when it came out, so he reached out to ask if he could voice a character in Miyazaki's next film. To his surprise, he was offered the lead role in Howl's Moving Castle, and being a total fanboy at this point, he obviously wasn't going to turn that part down. Though, honestly, I wish that he had. Ghibli and Disney were no doubt thrilled to get such a talented actor on board, but it's not like they were short on options. Speaking to Nausicaa.net, Cindy and Don Hewitt, who also wrote the English language scripts for My Neighbor Totoro, Porco Rosso, Spirited Away and several other Ghibli films prior to Howl's Moving Castle, revealed that they are always inundated with offers when it comes to casting their Ghibli dubs. They said, "A good deal of famous actors, including Oscar winners, have asked to take part in Miyazaki's films. There were plenty of other options around at the time that would have worked a lot better than Christian Bale in my opinion. For example, I think someone like Orlando Bloom would have been ideal. His natural voice just suits Howl more in my opinion, and he had the star power that Disney and Ghibli both wanted, having just come off playing Legolas in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and Will Turner in the first Pirates of the Caribbean film. In fact, Howl kind of looks like the love child of those two characters when you think about it. Orlando Bloom is also English, which brings me to my main criticism of Bale's performance. Why the hell did he give Howl an American accent? The most bizarre thing about this choice is that in the original books by Diana Wynne Jones, Howl is actually a Welshman. Bale is from Wales, so why he didn't just use his natural, normal voice is a real puzzle to me. The only plausible explanation for this was that he was too deep in his Batman work to change his accent for Howl, which is a real shame. The Hewitts actually told Nausicaa.net that they always try to remain true to the characters and the setting whenever they're adapting a Ghibli movie. For example, Porco Rosso is set in 1929, which is why you don't hear any modern terminology in that film. However, at the end of the day, their job is to make these films palatable to North American audiences, and that is ultimately more important than authenticity. The Hewitts even admitted that people in the UK would probably be pissed off about some of the voice performances in Howl's Moving Castle in an interview they did about a month before the dub hit cinemas. They said, "Howl's Moving Castle may be very annoying to the British since there are 3 actors from the UK, Gene Simmons, Christian Bale and Emily Mortimer, and they are not using their accents. Sophie and her sister Letty, played by American Jenna Malone, speak with a mild mid-Atlantic accent, which is neither American nor British. It's somewhere in between. Films are released by territories. Studio Ghibli's deal with Disney is for the USA and Canada. Now, I understand that the priority here is to make Ghibli films work in North America, but it's a little insulting to the people of the US and Canada to suggest that they would be turned off by a British accent, especially when you consider the genre. Fantasy and British accents go hand in hand, and if you've played Baldur's Gate, then you'll know that regional accents actually work very well in these kinds of settings.
You look like you think you're old.
I'm not saying that Bale should have made Howl full-on Welsh, but if Sophie sounds basically British, then why can't Howl? It could be that Bale just didn't want to risk switching between his Bruce Wayne voice and a regular Welsh voice, but I still think he should have at least given Howl a British twang. Maybe he felt like this was just too risky given everything that was riding on Batman Begins. If that was the case, then why not step aside and let somebody else more suitable take over? There would have been plenty of other opportunities for him to voice a character in another Ghibli movie at a later date, which, of course, he did. If you've seen the English dub of Miyazaki's latest film, The Boy and the Heron, then you'll know that Bale provides the voice of Shoichi Maki, the father of the film's young protagonist, Mahito. Unlike Howl, this role is perfect for Bale. He suits the sword-wielding dad down to a T. And, fun fact, the Japanese version of the character is played by Takuya Kimura, the original Howl. Anyway, let me know what you think about Bale's version of Howl in the comments. Am I being too harsh, or was he just really a bad choice for the role? Also, who do you think is the best dub actor in a Ghibli movie? There's been some great ones over the years, from Mark Hamill's Colonel Muska in Castle in the Sky to Gillian Anderson's Moro in Princess Mononoke. But for me, there's only one winner, Phil Hartman as Gigi in Kiki's Delivery Service. Gigi is played by a woman in the Japanese version of the film and is a very different character. Japanese Gigi is reserved and cautious and is clearly meant to be a reflection of Kiki's insecurities, maturing along with her as the movie progresses. Meanwhile, Hartman's version of Gigi is a typical wisecracking sidekick, but he's still there for Kiki when needed, just in a different way. Now, this might piss off the purists, but I think Disney's decision to insert a bit of comic relief through Gigi actually works very well, and this is one of the few Ghibli films that I tend to watch in English these days, purely for Hartman's performance. I'm just glad that Christian Bale wasn't aware of Ghibli at this point, or we might have ended up with this.
I'm Batman.
Cheers for watching, guys. I'll see you all in the next one.